Everyone, we are back
For
again.
part two.
Part two of the Marvel Cinematic Universe discussion with none other than Robbie Clark.
Hello.
So my name is Eddie Tobias, aka Eddie Nomadic. We do a weekly show. Every week we're going to be talking about tequila, comic books, and it's a little bit of movies and comics in general. Normally I have a podcast every week where I interview a wrestler and we talk about tequila, the wrestling business. But today I wanted to change it up, do something a little bit different, and bring Robbie, who's got, as you heard earlier in the other episode, an extensive knowledge of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's been to almost every single opening day since
Really kind of since Ant-Man.
Ant-Man. Okay, so it's like what?
No, I went to the midnight showing of Avengers 2.
Okay,
Not Avengers 2 Age of Ultron, but Avengers,
Avengers
also.
also.
Yeah.
For
So
those of you wondering.
it's been off and on, but I think since Civil War or no, since Ant-Man I have not missed an opening day.
Awesome. So
It's dedication.
we're here because with Robbie's extensive knowledge. Also, so Robbie is an actor, and the way we met back in film school, where he acted in a couple of my projects and some of Ryan's projects, and we've been in touch pretty much ever since.
Pretty much, yeah.
We
We played fantasy football together for
Yeah.
every year except last season, I think.
What happened with you last season?
Last season, I think I just didn't. I want to say I didn't have time, but I think that's kind of a cop out. I think last season I just was doing so many different things I wouldn't be able to. You know, sometimes you have that person in the league who just doesn't
Doesn't do anything.
doesn't set their lineup or
Yeah.
their roster, and then it's just an ass whooping. I didn't want to be that guy, so I kind of just bowed out last season.
Okay.
But I'm back this season, and
So
I
we've-
could not be happier about
We've
it.
been in the fantasy league for like what, 5 years now?
4 or 5 years, yeah.
So it's been interesting how even though we live all across Texas and Fort Worth and Dallas area, and I'm in Austin, we still somehow come together every football season and talk trash to each other online. So it's
I mean,
hilarious.
the trash is amazing. It's, one man's trash is another man's smack talk. Is
Yeah.
really how it goes.
It's been pretty great. So we're talking about MCU. Most importantly, we talked about Infinity War because if you check out Robbie's channel, I'll probably post a link in the description later on when I get home. But Robbie actually did a Infinity War marathon.
Yeah,
So you watched it. How many times did you watch Infinity War?
The very first day I got it on Blu-ray. Here's the thing. My birthday is August 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Infinity War came out on Blu-ray August 14th. I had both of those days off from work. Got a call from my boss. He said, "Can you work these 2 days?" I said, "I'll be in open to close on Monday, my birthday. I will work on my birthday.
Yeah.
I want to sit on my butt and watch Infinity War all day the day it comes out." So I woke up, got out the door, got to Best Buy before it opened, walked in, grabbed one of the first Infinity War Blu-rays off the shelf, came home. I watched it 4 times that day. But
Wow.
it could have been 5 times, but every time I get a new Marvel film, I always go for the special features first.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw like an hour and a half of special features and then started the film, and then I cried 4 times that day because actually 8 times because I always cried with Gamora too.
That one gets to me every time.
So 4 times that day. I woke up the next morning, had to go to work that night, but I still watched it twice that day before work. I've seen Infinity War about 37 times now.
Wow. So like, what is it every time that you watch it? What is it? Is there something that changes for you? Something that inspires you? A little thing you get, like a little nugget? Because you're also a writer.
Yeah, you know,
So-
there are things that I'm not a big reader, and I know that the best writers are readers, but I think even more, at least these days, one of the like a good writer could be a great movie watcher if you absorb what they do in the script and how they lay out a story. Infinity War, I think to me is really just a childhood dream come true. First off, because I've always wanted to see like something like the Avengers, and then I really wanted to see something like Civil War, even though I know the studio doesn't have the rights to all the characters. But then Infinity War came along, and between Civil War and Infinity War, they gave Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange their own solo films. The Guardians of the Galaxy had 2 films, and they promised that the Guardians would get together with the Avengers. And then you see Stark, Quill, and Strange, 3 of the most egotistical people in the MCU, sharing the screen, and you're kind of giddy. You're just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like it finally happened. And we talked in the first episode that Marvel Studios storytelling, their narrative, their through arc, their thematic thread was an experiment in the grandest scheme. So to see it kind of pay off with Infinity War, I think I discover something different about how a line was delivered, or I notice an Easter egg in the background, or I notice, honestly, dude, like I watch it for the same thing every time. This film is basically, it tells you, it insists that if you're on the same side of somebody, or even if you're fighting for the same cause, regardless of the fact that in the last live section, I said that Thanos is the hero and the heroes are the villains.
Well,
Dude,
protagonist. Which you
protagonist
explained
and
very
antagonist,
thoroughly,
sure,
yes.
yeah, eating my own words. I know, I get it. But like, so when Thor, Rocket, and Groot come down into Wakanda, Rocket and Groot have no business being on Earth, right? Rocket and Bucky have never once met. And there's still that clip where Bucky lifts Rocket up and they shoot in a circle at the Outriders. And you think they have no business sharing the screen together. B, they have no reason to know instinctively to fight together. Rocket doesn't need to let Bucky do that. Bucky doesn't need to reach down and do that. He has no reason to save Rocket. They just know they're fighting for the same cause. It's the same with Star-Lord bouncing off of those discs that Strange throws out. It's like these two people who should not share screen are fighting together, and they're using their powers and their strengths in tandem.
Yeah.
So I watch it because like on the Blu-ray they discuss strange alchemy, like characters that shouldn't be together that are together. And to me they played it out so perfectly. It wasn't ever, oh, who can we get together to make the coolest moments? It was just, who can we put where? What stories do they tell? Where do their arcs take them? And when they're there, what can we do with their powers? You know, this is kind of going off topic, but Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, when they were doing Seinfeld, they never said, oh, let's just get Jerry's parents in and see what could happen. Oh, let's pull this character from season 2 all the way into season 6 and see what happens. No, if the story demanded it, they would bring the characters in. If it provided the best joke, the best plot, they would bring those characters in. So I think Infinity War is really sort of kind of like a giant ass episode. It's almost like the entire series of Seinfeld, where yes, the ending is a bit of a letdown.
Right.
Let's just say that. But you have these characters that, you know, the Guardians have never once been to Earth since Quill was abducted, and all of a sudden you've got. Oh, this, by the way, this is my friend, a tree.
Yeah.
I am Groot. I am Steve Rogers. You know, like, he doesn't care that he's a freaking talking tree. He just cares that he's trying to stop Thanos.
Well, the other thing too is that you just witnessed. I mean, you've seen Jatari. You've seen, like, if you were in, you know, Rogers' shoes, you've seen it all.
You've seen enough that
So
you're just
you're
like,
like, whatever.
if you're with me, you're with me.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what you look like, who you.
A talking tree. Okay, cool. Whatever, man. Come on in.
And there was another thing. I'm kind of getting on my high horse right now, but it feels good. I never get a chance to do this. So the movie School of Rock. You've seen that with Jack Black?
Yeah, absolutely love it.
So
Richard Linklater film as well. Shot in Austin. You know?
He's designating these roles to the kids, and that one little flamboyant boy comes up and he says, I want to design costumes. And Jack, he doesn't even bat an eye. He just goes, all right, Mr. Sassy Pants, go design them.
Yeah.
It's like, you're a talking raccoon that has no business being alive because you didn't ask to be experimented and pulled apart on over and over and over again, like Rocket says in the very first movie. But he has no business being there and fighting, but Bucky is still just like, all right, let's go. And he just
grabs him
and then it gives that comedic moment for, you know, how much for the gun, not for sale, how much for the arm, and just looks at him and is like, oh, I'll get that arm.
Yeah.
Like, there's Infinity War to me is a reward of 10 years of patience. It's a reward of 10 years of experimental storytelling. It's a reward to, like, the 6-7-year-old me who's reading X-Men, who's reading Spider-Man. And, you know, we have Spider-Man in the MCU now because Sony messed up so royally with the Amazing Spider-Man 2 that they reached out and Kevin Feige was like, not even for a producer credit,
Yeah.
we'll just make a Spider-Man film. And they got the rights to Civil War, and then that was received so well that they went for Homecoming. You know, like it's a reward for people who have dealt with really crappy superhero movies, at least for the Marvel films, because DC up until the recent universe, like the Dark Knight trilogy, those three movies I think are neck and neck with the entire MCU.
Yeah.
Just how they were presented. But I the Infinity War is above all a reward for people who have sat through every end credit scene. They've read every tie-in comic. They read the comics growing up. They've wanted to see Stark and Strange be awesome facial hair bros on screen. So for me to sit here and watch Infinity War 37 times, I do have an addictive personality. I do have an obsessive personality. It's exactly the same reason why for the first 5 episodes of Friends, I know every line of dialogue.
Yeah.
Because it was my favorite show for the longest time. I watched it over and over and over again. But Infinity War, I think when you and I'm gonna repeat myself, the experiment that they did, the storytelling they've done, the interweaving of the characters has been so almost flawlessly executed. Sometimes you have to retcon something, sometimes you have to ignore something that was said in order to make what's happening now work. But all that aside, that's been super minimal, and you have Tony Stark coming down facing Thanos and saying, "You throw another moon at me and I'm going to lose it," which is a funny line in a very tense situation. And the MCU has been able to bring all of these characters, all of these themes, all of these stories together to make something like that make sense and not detract from the drama of the situation.
Would you say that, like, I mean, obviously, the patience that it took to get to this point, right? And this is, it's an ending to one phase, but like you said in the last episode, it's just the beginning because Marvel has 20 something plus films in line in what they want to make. And with what is it, Captain Marvel, being introduced at the end of Infinity War, which you knew she was going to be involved because they've been plugging Brie Larson in the past, so many press conferences that they have and press junkets. Even though she is not featured in the film at all whatsoever or even mentioned, it's just the end credit scene, post credit scene where, Nick Fury sends the SOS. So like you have this experiment that you said it's been a success and been a patient. Do you think it's changed a little bit of the way the film industry has become? Not in the essence of let's make a big blockbuster film, but in the essence of like focusing on character properly and setting up storylines and not just knocking out a sequel after another spinoff, because these are all technically sequels. Right?
Yeah.
Like
Continuations.
Continuations. We'll yeah. But now you're like, okay, well, if we introduce one film or one universe, rather it's I don't know, a book, like you had Ready Player One, if it's
Oh my god, that movie also was so visually stunning.
I still have yet to see it.
Again,
but I read the book.
Again, I cried at that film because just the visual alone made me cry. Just Spielberg was at the top of his game with that movie.
It was every reference thrown into one big movie. It was great.
I'm sitting here trying to like count shit, and I've seen it probably 4 or 5 times now, and I'm still just I haven't found everything.
Yeah.
One of my favorites though is like Marvin the Martian from the Looney Tunes makes an appearance, and I thought that was
I have to watch it 'cause I know
unbelievably
there's so
obscure.
many references and so many like I first kind of when I saw Iron Giant in there and I saw the DeLorean, I saw
Dude, it gets
what's her name? Tracer from Overwatch, which is one of my favorite games that I play a lot.
We can't even really get into Ready Player One because if you haven't seen it, it would take probably a year or 2 or 4 to really explain how
So now I'm gonna watch
and well thought out.
I'm gonna
Ready
go
Player
watch
One
Ready
was.
Player One 37 times.
Oh, don't do that. You'll be a maniac. Anybody who watches a movie 37 times is just straight insane.
But back to the real question. Do you think that it has changed the film industry in essence of creating a universe and treating every unique story as its own universe from here on out. Because DC started to catch on to that. Marvel's laid the path, and now you start seeing other films. I mean, we talked a little bit about the Mummy and the Dark Universe.
Yeah.
Universal attempting that. Do you think that other films are going to start, creating their own universe and taking what Marvel has done successfully in the past 10 years into their own,
I'll
intellectual
say
properties?
this. I'll say this. I don't think it's going to cause studios to hope to start a universe with every new film they do. What I will say is, look at films in the last 10 years. Sometimes they were. I read a list of like signs that show or signs that tell you a movie is gonna suck, and one of them is if they're under 90 minutes, if they're under an hour and a half. And for a while there, it felt like movies were getting shorter and shorter and shorter to kind of keep up with humanity's attention span. Now, this is where I will get a little preachy as far as movies go. I like it when movies trust the audience. I don't like it when a studio or a bigwig or a director says, people aren't going to get this. Let's just cut it, dumb it down, and make it the most basic form of a movie you've ever seen. And how many times, without specific examples, how many times have you gone to see a movie and said, God, I wish they had done more? Like you kind of felt cheated from the movie-going experience.
I think also it's with our 24/7 lifestyle that we now have, thanks to the digital age of social media and the internet and everything we can do pretty much at our fingertips. I think that studios are starting to see that you not necessarily need to dumb it down, but try to get everything you can about the story in its basic nutshell in a trailer. Because if that person's going to want to see the movie, they're going to want to know the beginning, middle, and end without giving away the end. And then they go see the film, and you're like, well, I already saw this in the trailer. Whereas trailers before used to be like super teaser. They didn't tell you anything about the film.
Sometimes,
and they made you want to go watch it.
Sometimes that happens. And sometimes a trailer does tell you everything you need to know about a movie. Personally, I stay away from those movies. They're like Shutter Island with Leo DiCaprio a few years back. I saw that trailer. Wes, one of our good friends, I made a bet with him. I said, I will write down what happens in this film, and if you go see it and I'm right, you owe me $20.
Yep.
He comes into the green room at UTA, doesn't say a word, and slaps $20 down on the table. Because I knew what was going to happen in the movie.
Yeah.
Now, what I think Marvel has done, what I think the MCU at large has done, is maybe, because in the last couple of years, movies have gotten longer. If I can go sit in a seat for 2 hours, I'm happy. I don't get out of the house to go for 80 minutes and then come back. I go for an experience.
And that's what movies used to be. You would pay your ticket. You would have probably, like a Grindhouse film, you got 2 movies for the price of 1.
Yeah.
It was a show.
Yeah.
It was entertaining for 3 hours.
Movie going used to be not even like an easy task. It used to be a privilege.
Yeah.
It used to be like, I've worked hard 2 weeks. I'm going to go see a film.
Well, for most of the kids that are watching this right now, you guys
movies are probably still a privilege with your parents. Or...
You guys have taken my YouTube class. You know what I've talked about as far as history from filmmaking. We've literally gone from the box that Thomas Edison would have you put your head in to go see at a World's Fair,
which is honestly still a pretty fantastic invention.
Yeah, fast forward, and we're still looking at this box, this little but it's on our phone. And it's one at a time. So the technology has progressed to where movies are in our palm of our hand instantaneously whenever we want to. And before, you would have to wait in line.
I admittedly don't like. I like getting movies with digital copies because I can put them on my external, and wherever we go, I can watch a movie.
Right.
But I know that it's going to be on a small little 13-inch screen. I got this screen behind me. This is a 55-inch TV that when I turn the lights off and I kind of just zone in on the movie, it's like I'm in the theater.
Yeah.
But I think what Marvel
has done... Which will go into
done,
technical ratios of how distance from your screen and size and all that, you can mimic that. Because even with your iPhone, you can also mimic it.
I'm sure.
4K iPhone at this range is not really like 4K. Yeah, you get the 4K here. But you're watching movies on your phone or tablet from this far away. That's 1080 regardless of 4K.
Right.
Whereas if you're watching 4K on that TV from this distance, it is like an actual 4K projection.
Yeah, it's crystal clear.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. But I will say... we're both, I don't want to say aspiring filmmakers because we've both made films.
Right.
And once you've made a film, you're a filmmaker. It doesn't matter if you have a piece of paper from a university saying you're a filmmaker. All that matters is the final product.
Well, we
What-
talked about in the podcast, as you heard, like we've made projects, I've sold projects, and which could have been into something, greater along, but because we're not working on, large film sets all the time.
Yeah.
Right? We live in Texas. For those of you who don't know, Texas film incentives are terrible.
Crap.
They're really terrible.
Used to be really good.
So unless you're James Cameron, Robert Rodriguez, Richard Linklater, that have millions and millions of dollars and backing to actually make a film, there's no point in shooting in Texas. So for those of you out there, independent filmmakers, working on your own film, spending all your money out of your pocket, I'm going to tell you right now, you're doing it the wrong way. Find a smarter way to make your films. Make them shorter. Put them on YouTube. Make them cheaper. Put a web series. Make content. Put it out there on your channel. But don't work 7 to 10 years on making one large feature film that you think is going to explode and grow. Like, I've gone through the process of thinking that I was going to make a comic book movie, hit Hollywood, get out there, I ended up selling it to a network, and the deal didn't go through. So of course, I didn't actually make money with that, but going through that process taught me something, and seeing how, even though we're considered aspiring filmmakers, yeah, we have made content. And if you make a movie and you put it up on YouTube, guess what? You're
a freaking filmmaker.
Yeah.
But back to the initial question from like 10 minutes ago that I've kind of like personally dovetailed around. I think the MCU in general has forced Hollywood to really take stock of their storytelling ability. In the 10 years since Mr. Stark announced himself as Iron Man, you've seen movies get better. There have been, like, even Christopher Robin earlier this year.
I haven't seen, but I saw the trailer. I thought
God,
it was amazing.
it's such a sweet, heartwarming film because of, and this is like, if this could be like a crash course in screenwriting at all, you need to focus, like, the character tells the best story. The story doesn't dictate the character. The story doesn't need to be some obscene spectacle. The character tells the best story. And when you look at the MCU, this is what they've done. So this is another reason why I don't think DC has done as well as Marvel, is DC tells stories of heroes or gods or Amazons as human.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel tells stories of those same people as heroes. So, and I know that people are gonna be like, well, Thor, he's a demigod, but they stress over the course of 3 movies how human they are. They can die. They're not gods.
Not only that, if you look at the trailer for Infinity War and analyze it in that essence, right? Who's the one that gets destroyed and defeated the most? Who can't go up against Thanos, and that is Thor.
Yeah.
He loses Mjolnir. He has to travel to a whole different part
Thor,
of the galaxy.
When Thor is
But who's the
talking
one
to
that
Rocket,
stops his hand, which is Rogers.
Yeah.
A human,
But he's a human.
superhuman.
He was a human before
Yes.
the super serum.
Mm-hmm.
So he still deals with a very human aspect of his heroicism. Tony Stark was, playboy billionaire, philanthropist, whatever. Genius billionaire, playboy philanthropist. Before he was in an Afghan cave for however many months.
Mm-hmm.
He came out, he wanted to do something better. He's still a human dealing with what happened to him.
Right.
Quill was abducted at the age of 8. So he's a normal dude on a space adventure. Gamora does not really have any superhuman abilities. She was taken from her planet by Thanos and now is just she was taught to be one of the fiercest women in the galaxy.
Right.
Doctor Strange is a human who has access to these mystical powers. T'Challa is a man.
He was very egotistical and full of himself in the beginning, and then he has his accident, goes on this journey, realizes that he needs to humble himself a little bit.
That's the, like, people say, oh, the MCU origin stories are all the same. It's like, because people are all the same.
Yeah.
Like, you have your own demons, you have your own character flaws, but learning to work with them instead of against them will make you a hero. And that's why Strange and Stark are 2 totally different people. That's why the stories in an essence are the same story, but they're very different stories on the outside.
Well, I mean, most films in general, I mean, not just MCU, but in general all over, I mean, there's only 4 themes to really work with for any of you
And
beginners out there
there are
watching.
5. There are
5?
5.
5.
There's
Okay,
like
so
man versus man,
man versus
man
man,
versus nature,
man versus nature, man versus self, man
man
versus
versus self,
society,
man versus yeah. There's
and
one more.
I think that's 4, but we'll Google it and look it up. But
I'm gonna
I
look it up
mean, even
right
at that,
now.
there's what over 50,000 movies that have been made in the course of history,
Yeah,
right?
easily over
And
that.
a little bit over that because at the bottom, if you guys watch all the credits at the bottom, they always have like a number, serial number, and that tells you which registered, in the film directory, which registered number that is. So there's over 50,000 films, and of those 50,000, they've all are based off of only 4 to 5 themes that we just discussed. So to think about that, how do you change stories and to develop them in such
Oh,
a
that's
way
stupid.
that characters, you're dealing with only 4 themes, 4 to 5 themes. I still can't think of what the 5th one would be.
I can't either, but I
I'm
know
gonna
it's
go with
there.
4. I'm pretty sure there's
I'm
4.
gonna go.
But anyway, you have to work with those 4 themes and make a unique story based off of that. But at the core of every film, there's those 4 themes, right? And we talk about that in film club and film classes and stuff that I've been teaching for the past few years to the kids, so they kind of understand. Because when
I
you're a
gotta look it up
kid,
later.
you're like, I just want to throw all these ideas. Like when we watch all the like stop Lego animation films these kids make, it's just a bunch of like, oh, then this attack and this explosion and this. But then you kind of slow them down and be like, why do this happen? Why does this happen?
And when I think about watching Infinity War 37 times, just when you talk about being a kid throwing all the stuff at a screenplay or throwing all the stuff at a script. When I look at Infinity War, it is all the stuff I've ever wanted to throw at a movie. It's everything I've wanted to throw at anything, but they're at the end of the day, these characters are very insanely, irrevocably human who just happen to have access to these greater powers. They're not Aquaman. Aquaman is not a man. He's half man, half aquatic god or whatever. But he's
What do you call it? Atlantean?
yeah,
Atlantean?
half god, half Atlantean. Thank you.
There you go.
But he still has that innate power in him. Diana Prince is pure Amazon. She has that power within her. Excuse me. Superman. He gets his power from the yellow sun of Earth. Like, he's not a human. He's an alien. So I think DC tells great stories in the comics, and they have a very rich history of villains, which I think outdo that the history of villains outdoes the Marvel history of villains.
Plus, their animated series, I think,
I think
are
the animated does so much better than
any of the live stuff they've created.
But Marvel, I think thanks to Kevin Feige, Victoria Desposito, and somebody Alonso, I cannot remember all their names, but there are 3 main producers of the MCU. And I think thanks to them, thanks to noticing that, God, they're human.
Yep.
They are human beings, and they put them in these situations and these stories that human beings have no right to flourish, and they allow them to flourish because they speak from the character more than the super heroic nature of a comic book.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the MCU, as grand as it is, as fulfilling as it is, works so well because when I watch Strange throw out those platforms for Quill to jump up and put an explosive on the back of Thanos, it's like these are 2 humans who happen to fall into their gift.
Yep.
That are saving the universe. And that to me is so much better than seeing an Amazon and an alien fight a doomsday with a man in a bat costume and come out victorious because you knew it was going to happen. And then in the fact that they don't win, the villains don't win in Infinity War is an exceptionally bold move on the part of the screenwriters, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and the directors, the Russo brothers, as well as Marvel Studios in general. Kevin Feige saying, "Yep, do it, do it. That's how we want this to go." Even though we know there's a part 2, we know that there are 2 other films between that and.
But we kind of
Infinity
talked
War.
about it, the ethos, the emotion behind all of it is what really like. I mean, when you left that theater watching the film, let me check my battery before I leave. When you watch that film and you leave the theater, you're left almost like
Empty.
Boom.
Did
That's
we
the
just
word.
say that?
Yep.
Yeah,
At the same
because
time.
you left
You
empty.
left empty.
I'll tell you. Here's what happened, man.
And in a good way, though.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
in a perfect like we went to go see that. It was Thursday, 7:30. It was April 26th, I think. It came out on the 27th. At 7:30 on April 26th, I watched the film, and there's no mid credit scene. There's just the one in credit scene.
Yeah.
In between Thanos being secluded as a farmer, watching the sun rise over a grateful universe, the cut to black, and then the end credit scene, I bought my tickets for another showing the next morning.
Wow.
I could not. I said to sometimes I'll go see a Marvel film, and even though it's great, it's phenomenal, it's like my schedule won't allow me to go see it immediately the next as much as I want to. I said, honey, I know I was gonna clean the apartment, but I'm just at 10 o'clock tomorrow when the theater opens, I'm gonna go see Infinity War again, and I'm gonna come home crying because I was left empty.
Yeah.
Yes, but I was also left like, did I really see what I just saw?
Because it's not, and all characters aside, all emotions aside, it's the first film in a while where, like we said, on the first episode, where the quote unquote villain or bad guy of the film, the protagonist in this film it's the same formula, right? The protagonist of any films mostly wins or gets their mission in the end. If they don't, they fail in the end of the second act and do something to regain it, and then the third act it closes, and boom, you've learned your lesson. You work forward. This was the first film that I've seen in a long time that has beginning, middle, and end. First act, second act, third act, everything's smooth, but you're watching it from the AKA villain's perspective.
And I want to,
and I haven't seen any like Dark Knight. You want the Joker to succeed.
You kind of want the Joker to. But
that's not the whole film.
That failure though, when they don't push the button on either one of the yachts, like you can see him like there's a moment where he's just like, people aren't following the chaos like I want them to, so I'm gonna have to make it happen, and then that's when Batman gets the upper hand. So two things about Infinity War is that yes, it is the first one is that yes, it is a huge deviation from the norm, but it's also very earned in the 10 years preparation they've put into it.
Yes.
That movie, they earned, and I said two things, and man, I had a really good one, and now I can't remember, but I remember the first one is that they earned that ending.
It's like that payoff. It's a 10-year payoff. That's what it is.
Absolutely it is.
It's like basically, like you said, I was asking you earlier, how do you remember from the beginning to end?
I do remember. You said it was a very clear story. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now let me ask you this. This has been my argument for every Marvel film. You take away the Marvel branding. Winter Soldier is a spectacular espionage film.
Yes.
You take away the Marvel branding, and Iron Man is a beautiful film about a man who makes himself better using his intelligence to make the world a better place. Take away the Marvel branding, and the Guardians of the Galaxy is this joyous little group of misfits who have no reason being together, and yet they decide to stop a common enemy.
Yeah.
You take away the Marvel brand from any film, you've still got a great film. Now, knowing what we know about the MCU, and knowing that Ant-Man and the Wasp just came out, and knowing that Captain Marvel comes out in March, and knowing that Infinity War Part 2, which they're not even calling it anymore, comes out next year, knowing what we know about that, if we stripped all that away and we just looked at Infinity War as a standalone film, as is, you don't need to know the history of any of the characters because it's all pretty much explained in the film.
Yep.
If we stripped away the Marvel branding, do we have a movie that has a clear beginning, a clear middle, and a clear end with a clear resolution?
Absolutely.
Do we or do we not?
Yeah.
So what we have here.
If I break it down, like not in super detail, but the beginning, you introduce Thanos and his goons, and they're on the ship, and they just attack the ship, and then you have Loki and Thor, right, and the Hulk, and you see Banner's all messed up,
and
so
that
you
leads
start
you to Strange and Tony Stark, and then that takes you to Guardians of the Galaxy in space, and it's the premise of Thanos is introduced,
and then his journey of why he's going for the stones. If you've never heard anything about the stones before, you've never seen a Marvel, it's all explained.
It is all explained
in that movie.
Sure.
So does do you have to watch every single Marvel film to get?
You
No,
should,
you
but
can,
but
but
they're just astounding feats of filmmaking.
but if you watch it alone as a film,
If we
it
look
makes
at
total
this
sense.
film, if we look at this film with a clear beginning, a middle, and end, we have a very, very, very beautiful standalone film that deviates from the norm in the best possible way. Not because the villain wins, but because they showed us a film from the villain's point of view.
Right.
They gave, like, if they had spent a little more time on the Joker in The Dark Knight and explaining why he was doing what he was doing, in, a very manic Joker sort of way, it might equal Infinity War, because that movie is a borderline perfect movie. I think Infinity War is a borderline perfect movie. But the way they chose to do this movie, playing like, what is the phrase they use? I think the screenwriters say play kickball with the characters, where you have different teams and they have to go off and they have to do their own stuff. You can't have just 25 people in a room at every single turn. The way they chose to do it and focus more on Thanos, I think not only tied the different groups of heroes together very well, but it was also, if you take away the Marvel brand, you have a very beautiful movie that not even just where the villain wins, but it explains why he wins.
Well, the central point of the film is around Thanos and his journey.
Yes.
And even if you break away from him at times, right?
You want to go back to him.
You want to go back and see what is he up to now.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, Gamora, for every part of the stone that he's trying to get, every stone that he does obtain, you're like, oh great, does he obtain it? Does he not obtain it?
And
and if he's successful, what's the next step?
Is he really
gonna do it? Obviously, if you read the comics and you watch,
Sure.
you know what's gonna happen.
Right.
But even at that, you know the ending of the film, and you're still left like shocked.
I'll tell you that I was a little naive going into Infinity War. I as soon as he got the Time Stone from Strange, I knew, like, I didn't even expect him to get the Soul Stone. I thought the Soul Stone was going to be saved for the
second
fourth
part.
Avengers
Yeah.
film. But after he got the Time Stone from Strange, I looked at Sam and she looked at me and we were just like, oh shit. And then he got the Mind Stone from Vision, and she even said, I didn't think he was going to get him all this quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that it was gonna his quest for the stones was gonna build up over the course of 2 films to make the snap and the undo them undoing it
Part of like the climax.
part of the climax of the second
Yes,
film.
yes.
And then I think that's part of why you leave so empty, is because in the span of 2.5 hours, he gets all 6 stones, he snaps, humanity is half gone, and you watch these characters that you've spent 10 years growing to love disappear before your eyes. And then you have this other stuff where, like, it's...
Well, also because you have to wait a really long time to see what happens in the next part of the series. So, like, you can read the comics all day, right? You can go through, but you still have to wait until that film releases. And that's why I love, like, New Comic Wednesday, you wait a week, right? Or
Yeah.
you watch an episode on YouTube or do something,
But this
it comes out
is-
the next day.
This is very much, again, a part of that experimental storytelling where ever since 2012...
5?
No, because 2000...
What about Avengers?
No, 2008 was just Iron Man. There was no movie in 2009. There were 2 movies in 2010, 2 in 2011. I think 2012 is when they started doing 3 movies a year.
Okay.
So even though you don't get the continuation and the satisfaction of, like, a heroic ending from the fourth Avengers film right after Infinity War, we still have Ant-Man and the Wasp, which was great, and Captain Marvel before we get there. So you still get, like, new comic day. But as far as the movie schedule goes, which you're super familiar with, I think they're getting them to us as quickly as they can.
Yeah.
Which I can appreciate.
I'm excited. I'm going to transition really quick. So I'm excited for the film. But now, how do you think it's going to change the world in real life as far as, like, theme parks? Because we've seen... Now, this is getting into, what I love. I love going to amusement parks with my girlfriend, roller coaster junkie, theme park junkie. She knows a lot about history of Six Flags and all bunch of rides and stuff.
Sure.
So I'm getting into, like, theme parks and rides and what's copied over, what's brought over.
Okay.
So Universal Studios has the licensing rights before Marvel made MCU.
Sure.
And so you have a Marvel Island that is based off of just the comic books. right? So you have the Spider-Man ride, you've got Hulk ride, you've got Doctor Doom's drop.
That Hulk ride though
It's great,
is so fantastic.
and they changed it up. Um, I wish my girlfriend could tell you all the different loops and stuff.
Yeah.
She knows all the terms, but they changed it up and added different things, so it's a completely different ride from when I first got it. But the launch is still there.
Yep. Oh, the launch though.
Yeah.
Launch though.
So, how do you see like Disney obviously owns Marvel, and at California before it was California Adventure. Now I think it's just like Disney Island or something like that. We got Pixar Pier, is what it's called, and then they have an entire Marvel section. Guardians of the Galaxy took over the Tower of Terror, and during October, which they're probably going to announce then, they have the After Dark. So during special nights, they'll have a new music soundtrack and new monsters, new play on the Tower of Terror ride, which is now Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it's like Escape.
Guardians of the Galaxy Breakout. I think
Breakout
is what it's
Thank you.
called.
Yeah, Breakout. So the Breakout ride, and I've watched a lot of like walkthrough videos and that kind of stuff. But how do you see like any of these new MCU characters and designs? It starts off with the costumes on the characters that are in the character meet and greet, and then it transitions to rides. Then it possibly transitions into, a whole park, if that's what we're going towards. Like, what do you think might happen after these 10 years of films? Now they're going to grow into maybe a theme park or just a ride? Are they going to keep it at rides? Because Disney pretty much owns several plots of land that we're not even using yet to build and create stuff. Guardians of the Galaxy is also coming to Epcot. It's already there at Epcot. And there's a new Guardians of the Galaxy ride I think they're coming out with. So... well, what's your take on MCU turning into Marvel Disney theme parks?
I want you to know that I've never once thought about this until you asked the question. So this answer might be a little haphazard and scattered all
good.
over the place. But I would be shocked, Disney being the juggernaut that it is, owning the rights to the MCU and all the Marvel. I think Marvel Studios has the rights to 6,700 characters. Obviously, most of which have never even been in a movie. But I would be shocked if there weren't already plans. I'd be shocked if there wasn't already an Avengers show in the works, like in the style of the Old West stuff you used to see at Six Flags, where they like get shot and fall onto an inflatable
I mean, they have
platform.
the stunt shows that are out and about, but that's nowhere near like...
right. I think, and especially with what they have now, God, have you seen those robots that can like fly in the air and like do human poses?
Oh yeah,
they
stunt
do
robots.
Stunt robot.
Yeah.
There's a stunt robot that does the Iron Man pose from the Avengers when he's
He
looking at Loki and says, and there's one other person you pissed off. His name was Phil. He's got that Wild West style cowboy look, and there's a robot that is programmed to do that in the air.
And they built it and designed it so that the physics and the mechanics, like they do a manual like back flip or front flip, and then when they land, the weight and the mechanics of the whole machine allow it to spring down and come up like a human being.
So considering that, and considering just, I mean, Infinity War is one of two films to make $2 billion at the box office during its first run. The other one was Star Wars. There you go. We're blowing through your battery.
Getting close there.
The other one to make it in their first theatrical one was Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and the other two were Avatar and Titanic. But that's all on re-releases and shit like that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really count. I think.
Plus, if you include inflation.
Well, if you include inflation, Gone with the Wind is the best-selling movie of all time. But just considering just how powerful the MCU is as far as movies go, and how movies outside of Disney and outside of the MCU are slowly getting better, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that people are looking more at storytelling devices and characters and thinking, well, this would be the easy way out in the past, but these people are kicking it up a notch. We have to compete.
Yeah.
It's like we talked about on the podcast. If you surround yourself with people that are better than you, you're gonna do better. And I don't think the Marvel movies are the best movies ever by any means, but I think now in 2018 they are better than most of what's being churned out, and it's forcing people to do better. Now, as far as theme parks go, the property is too valuable to not do something with. Now, as soon as those rights revert back to Disney. I don't know if they'll get them from Universal or if they'll have to buy them from Universal, or if Universal has to make certain upgrades to their little section to keep the rights. I don't know any of that.
Yeah.
But should they revert back to Disney, I would be shocked if there weren't plans for an Iron Man coaster or a Thor, you know, shootout with Mjolnirs that like shoot aliens or something,
Like a 3D ride.
like a Men in Black ride kind
Yeah,
of
uh-huh.
with a Mjolnir instead of a gun. I don't know, but it's Marvel Studios is too hot a commodity to not, and I hate to say it, to not exploit every way possible.
Yeah.
But if you can make a ride that has the spirit of the movies, because those movies are, I mean, the spirit and the love and
Well, that's what Breakout was.
the
Breakout is just that.
I've never gone through a walkthrough.
Go to YouTube, watch
Okay,
it. Okay,
okay,
so
okay.
using the music from the film, some original music, the composer, and the storytelling. Essentially, the story is that Groot is trapped inside of the collector's office, right?
Groot.
And so you have to go and try to rescue Groot, but there's all these monsters that Rocket accidentally lets loose.
Rocket.
And
Damn
so
Rocket.
then you're going through the whole ride trying to escape this massive place with monsters and all sorts of and there's a lot of Easter eggs. Like you can ride it 50 different times and you'll find something new every time.
Oh,
That's
I
what's
love
great about the
that.
ride.
I love that.
So there's a bunch of Easter eggs in that ride. And so like it's single tower terror drop ride, but I think it captures the spirit of the film, the spirit of the characters, and it's an enjoyable ride every single time you go.
And I think that's
Even in
where,
the queue as well. The queue is you're in the collector's lobby.
Sure. And I think that's where those rides would benefit is if they did their absolute damnedest to capture the spirit of the film, because nobody goes to those films expecting to just see, and I think that's why the argument of it's just not a superhero film, I'm getting so burnt out, like, shut up. They're not superhero films. They're complete and total stories of humanity who, again, just happen to have access to these greater abilities. If they did the same thing with the rides and the queue and you just like the environment and the atmosphere surrounding that particular ride, I'd go.
Which
I would, hell yeah, I would go. Why would I not?
Disney Imagineers are probably the best team to probably do that
Which is
with a ride because that's all they do is storytell within the
Right.
queue, within the ride itself is a massive story.
which is why I would not be shocked if they're not preparing for more of that. If they don't have rides already in the bank for when the rights go back to Disney, I would legitimately be shocked if they said, "All right, we're starting from square one because now we
I'm-
can make an Iron Man ride."
I'm
Like,
afraid that the Rock and Roller Coaster is going to be one of the victims of that transition.
see, I thought
And I hope not because it's like Aerosmith, it's been a long ride. The holographic, projection on the wall is great.
I always thought that Rock and Roller Coaster would be a great Guardians ride.
I thought so too.
I think that just makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why the Tower of Terror got
I guess
eaten
it's
up
the
by
technology
Guardians.
inside of it. You can have multiple screens, the way it moves forward when you're actually going
Well,
up.
yeah, but if you like, because I mean, you think about it, you got like 7 Aerosmith songs playing in your head while you're going on the Rock and Roller Coaster. You put up, and I mean, like for Disney, like plasma LCD screens aren't expensive.
Yeah.
You sync it all up, you film some new shit, and you just go.
Put it
Like
on there.
I think that made
Probably
more
a
sense to me.
special night event to start testing out, new technology
Yeah,
and stuff. I
yeah,
think it'd
yeah,
be great.
sure. But I think really why we're here, for me personally, and again, this is all views and opinions expressed here on this live YouTube video are that of my own and nobody else's. I think that the MCU, if it goes over into the theme parks, I hope those rides are great because the movies are great. The TV shows, the Netflix shows are decent, but for whatever reason, I don't know who sold their soul to who. The movies have continuously captured lightning in a bottle. And it seems like it gets to be a smaller bottle with a bigger bolt of lightning every time. And I don't know how that's possible. But I think there's a lot of focus and emphasis on the humanity of the stories. I think they really do take storytelling and movie making at its simplest and build out. I don't ever think they build inward. And I think that's what a lot of people screwed up with in the past. And I think that's why a lot of shared universes have fallen apart in the recent past. But for me personally, these films are kind of a reason to keep going. You know, like for a very long time, I wanted to be an actor, and then for a while there, I didn't want to. And then I see stuff like Thor talking to Rocket, and he goes from comedic to sad to shedding a tear to comedic, and it's like you could teach a class.
Yeah.
You could teach a class on how to do that. Like it would take a semester to mimic what you've just done. And then, you know, sometimes I think I don't really want to write anymore. And then I see a film like Ragnarok that takes the dark world mythology and makes it fun and funny, and you get to reinvent the tone of a character.
Right.
To the point where Hemsworth was like, man, after Avengers, I think I'm done. And then Ragnarok comes along and he's like, hey, Feige, I could do like one more Thor standalone. Like I could, like I'm cool now. Like, because that's kind of how Thor should have been from the get-go. But you just the reinvention, the writing, the direction, the colors, the visual stimulants, like the way these movies are set up.
The Goldblum.
Oh my God. But the way the movies are presented as a whole, the evolution of them, it's like, oh, holy shit. Anything is... That was really profound and I burped in the middle of it. Anything is possible. Because they went from taking a B character like Iron Man, who was definitely never the A squad. Never. He was... No. He was a B, maybe a C character. And he blew up into an A character. And they fit the Avengers around him.
Yeah.
That was a gamble. That was such a risk on the studio's part. And it paid off so well because they believed in the humanity and the sacrifice of the story. And I really think that if we're going, I would kind of like to wrap it up here in a little bit because I think I'm running out of shit to say. But if this were to be another crash course in writing, it's focus on the character first. Focus on what the character is capable of. Focus on what you want your character. Like if you were that character, how would you want to be? Make you the best part of you that character. And the possibilities are endless. And then as you write that character, you probably see more of the hero in your own life. And I think it can be a great therapy, and I think it can be a great way for young screenwriters to get into the business and be like, look, this is character first, story second, and spectacle third. And I think that's the order that it needs to go in.
Well, I think I'm definitely going to go home and start working on the character story.
You should do that.
Based on the MCU we chatted about earlier.
You should do that.
Definitely going to go look into my comics and, write a treatment. As you know, I'm not as big into writing unless I'm super passionate about writing a project.
Sure, I'm the same way.
And so I think this would be a good one to write. But yeah.
Absolutely, it would be.
All right. Robbie, thank you so much for joining me on this
dude.
again. That was so much fun. Guys, keep a lookout. All right. Follow Robbie online. I am Robbie Clark on Instagram. He's doing great stuff. We're gonna be working on some projects together.
Yeah,
some podcasts, some short films, some stuff to put up on YouTube. Just creating a lot of more content. Now that we have the time and space, and I think more importantly, the technology is different from
I think
10 years ago.
More importantly, is the will and drive to do so.
Yeah. So going from Austin to come here, Dallas, you're more
here, Fort Worth.
Sorry,
by
Fort
the way.
Worth. Yes, Fort
From
Worth.
Fort
Sorry.
Worth to Austin.
Fort Worth.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
It will.
So we'll definitely be making some more content. If you guys like, the talk, what you heard, I know it's like an hour-long talk. We probably
really?
can. Yeah, it was like 54 minutes.
Holy crap! That's what happens when you charge your phone.
Yep, when you're having fun.
Oh shit!
All right, so we're gonna sign off and head out for the day. Really do appreciate you guys watching, and if you do like it, subscribe on the bottom. And if you guys come up with a title for this kind of talk podcast, we'll be doing more often. put it in the comments below, and I'll choose one of you guys' titles, and that'll be the title of our show.
The lucky winner.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Eddie
Thanks, guys.
Tobias, aka Eddie Nomadic.
I am Robbie Clark of So Close to Greatness, and we are everywhere.
All right, we'll see you guys soon. And of course, as I always close out, if you guys are trying to do something amazing and positive with your life and someone tells you you can't, tell them you've got 2 words: watch me.